Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 9 of RL AfterShock. We've almost turned the big 10-0 vacant. It's been only a few months, but it feels like such a long time that we've been here. I'm Switchblade Jay. Joining me, as he always does, is Digital Bacon for another show, epic, jam-packed show of all the Rocket League action from all of the EU scene. Bacon, slight technical problems forced us to move this show back a day. It's probably why I've only got 4 viewers watching the live stream, but that's fine. We've still got plenty of content for you. Of course, listening on the VOD and the audio podcast, which is now available on iTunes. Finally got Apple to sort us out with something. So yes, now we're available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and I think maybe about 6 or 7 other platforms total for podcast listening. So once again, make sure you go to anchor.fm/RLAfterShock to find out where it's most convenient for you. And of course, follow the Twitter at RLAfterShock and join the Discord and everything. How you been?
Yeah, good. It's been a hectic week. Actually, like everything IRL is going a bit nuts at the moment. Like we're currently renovating a new house we just moved in. And we fired the builders today because they were just doing a crap job. So
just straight up, get the fuck out of my new house.
Get straight out of that. Like you've been here 5 days. All you've done is remove the tiling from the bathroom. Get out. Worthless. That's it. So dealt with that. Little stress out, but here can get back to a bit more normality, Jay. Which I always love talking about Rocket League. So this should, chirp me up a little bit.
Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of Rocket League. Like I said, a jam-packed show. We're going to be talking the Renegade Cup later on today as we round out round 2 and look towards the grand finals coming up in... Actually, tomorrow it's starting. So, very, very on the ball, on topical with this whole thing. And, of course, also talking about the RLCS Promotion Relegation Tournament. That was a hell of a blast this past weekend. All 4 teams from the RLRS across both regions have made it up into the RLCS. So we're going to be talking about all that section from the EU side of things. Plus, we're also talking about the future of Rocket League, since that was a conversation that sparked up on Reddit, all coming up for you in the next hour and a half. But first, let's do some news. And our first little segment in regards to complexity. Now, the team have been on shaky ground as of late, but the organization have been one of the most successful in esports history. They just announced a very, very big new sponsor with WinStar World Casino and Resort, which I believe is a resort and a casino in Oklahoma, essentially. And obviously this brand new sponsorship breaks new ground across the entire esports space, but more specifically in Rocket League, since this is a conversation we've had in the past, sort of discussing about what we can do to help bring new sponsors in and potentially push Rocket League to the next level. And something we've been talking about is gambling sponsorships. Now, we know the Psyonix have been very, very against gambling, but this could well be the watershed moment. This could well be the opportunity for sponsors to move into the space, because now people are going to see that. And I don't know if the rules specifically state that they can't bring that sponsorship to LAN or put that sponsorship down on like in Rocket League events. But if that's not the case, then we could be seeing a bit more interest coming in from that sector of the sponsorships.
Yeah, for me here, I'm going to look at this and go, basically, Psyonix won't have a problem because, they can't step in on an org. If Psyonix suddenly goes to complexity, oh, no, you can't sign with them because they're gambling, then that's like, no, that's not going to happen.
They're a bit
anyway.
Fucking late to try and shut it down, but, whatever.
Yeah, that's it. So what will most likely happen is just Psyonix goes, yep, that's absolutely fine. But on the Rocket League jerseys, because a lot of, different orgs, for me straight away, NRG and G2 have different jerseys based on what esport they're, purely because you'll get NRG or G2 fans that will buy multiple shirts. It's just good business, essentially. And I've noticed as well, I love the FIFA jerseys from G2. I'm just going to say where they're like, because they're partnered with Barcelona or something, and they just look so cool having that span. A bit like the LAN ones. JNaps's Canada jersey was really cool as well. Much better than that American one, which for me I didn't really like. But
it was that
jersey was shite. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't want to go out and say it, Jay, but yes, it was shit completely. But all they've just got to do now is go, okay, you just can't have that casino logo on the RL jerseys. Pretty simple fix, and it's fair enough. I can't see any reason why G2 would be like, no, we've got to have it because that's part of our sponsorship.
I mean,
they should have known that it's going to be a conflict,
Yeah, but at the same time, with everything going on about in-game items and all the speculation around that and the doubts that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on during the show, Do you think teams really want to, comply to those kind of rules? Obviously it's a big thing for Complexity. It'll probably be a big thing for Rocket League as well if other teams and organizations want to jump on the bandwagon. Like I said, there's plenty of room in the space for sponsors like Betway and Rivalry we've talked about in the past to sneak their way forward. Like it's big business, it's big money for esports. Is this the watershed moment that we've been waiting for, B?
So I don't think this will actually trigger anything, to be quite honest. Because we've already had teams sign up, be part of Rocket League that have had some sort of like affiliation to companies that, just same parent companies that are involved within betting sites and all of that. It's just the same case of you don't put it on your jersey because they don't want to do that. I still personally, we went over this a couple of weeks back, that betting within a controlled, maybe licensed term should be allowed in Rocket League because, it's just part of the world. It makes it more mainstream, more applicable. Like, Rocket League is one of the few games where betting would actually be really cool into it. Like, I've seen the whole CS bit, and it's like, I always find it so silly of how as soon as a team gets, 5 games up and around, then suddenly the betting goes from being so even to completely one-sided. Whereas Rocket League, if you win a game out of a best of 7, it don't matter. Win 2 games does not matter. Win 3 games, okay, then you're pretty much guaranteed it. Oh wait, a reverse sweep. It'd be awesome to bet on. Plus, it's not on the esport itself. It's just coming down to the runners of these sites. As long as they're legit, they're following every legal possible tax, whatever, yada, 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 then let it be. It's good fun.
Yeah, and that's why I brought this sort of like story into perspective, because if they were signed by someone like, I don't know, loot.bet or bets.net, who I'm already going to get into shit because I've already worked with those companies on CS tournaments. But if we went into some of those guys and we were like, that's a sponsorship, I'll be like, okay, this is a terrible fucking idea on the basis of just, of what's it, of almost morality's sake, because obviously they're operating in a bit of a gray area with a gray area license, but these guys are pretty legit in America. So, this is a great sponsorship to have for Complexity. Obviously, it's going to be a great sponsorship to have for Rocket League. Again, it does trigger something. You have a little bit more suspect, but again, I'm hoping that one of these days there is that watershed moment where we do turn things around. Because again, as you say, I think it could benefit Rocket League pretty decently if we were.
Well, for me, the biggest benefit to Rocket League at the moment, especially in the UK, is that venues for LANs within the UK, because, we've looked at it, being casters, we're quite interested in seeing how would a UK sort of base LAN work. And essentially it require us going and using what is like a casino or a bingo hall, because those brands
are coming up this weekend, by the way, if anyone wants to tune into some great Counter-Strike action.
Exactly.
I'm totally not casting that one.
No. Counter-Strike is the great example of it because it's pretty much what fuels the bigger money within UK for that scene. Rocket League could really use that. We've got the only LANs going on in the UK at the moment. The biggest one, Insomnia, followed by Epic LANs going on around the year. But that is nothing. Bigger LANs to be able to get that grassroots level going, I would say, and actually get more appearances in LAN environments. It just strengthens the whole scene of Rocket League from a very, I wouldn't say a core place, because your core is going to be the top end, it's going to be your RLCS, but it's just basically making there so many more environments, more competition to be able to breed better and stronger players.
Yeah, and just to echo the sentiments we were talking about in previous sort of like episodes about moving into other regions, like CIS is very based around the gambling side of things. And again, Sonics don't need to get directly involved. I think again the most acceptable thing is just to kind of remove that restriction on community tournaments. Like they don't have to take a sponsor for the RLCS, but again, it would be nice if some third-party organizations could have that. And again, I'm hoping Complexity are very, very good for sponsorship for them. I'm hoping they don't put a cap on that and don't to completely remove it from RLCS LANs and stuff, if Complexity can make it back to an RLCS LAN, but that's a discussion for later on in the show. So let's leave that there and move on to our second piece of news, which is the big piece of news this week. Obviously, your boys, Bacon, Rewind Gaming, have announced the next EU monthly for the Renegade Cup, and it's going to be the Neon Dream. I almost forgot the name there. I probably shouldn't have done, since we've been discussing this for about a fucking month behind the scenes. But yes, the Neon Dream is the next Renegade Cup monthly. Obviously, it was announced very recently. Bacon's been planning this for fucking yonks, so I'm just going to let you take it away and just discuss everything that's going on.
So this is probably the most solid time for me to announce what the actual Neon Dream is. And like Jay said, I've been planning this since the Renegade Cup. Before it happened, we got like a week's head up, and it was like, oh, we want you guys to do November. Naturally, because we had just come off the back of doing the Coliseum, and we're like, nah, we can't do November. Everyone's at uni, and it was just a hectic time. We're going for December. To which, Sonic's like, oh yeah, sure, that's fine, because they've got to fill 4 of these, so they're happy days. So we've got like a little bit more of a heads up on everyone else. And the whole idea of this tournament is basically we don't want to make just a tournament. We want to aim this to be a show. We want this to basically be as much fun to play as it is to watch. So the tournament pretty much runs like any other tournament. We've got the drafts, which are just your standard qualifiers, same as what the Grand Prix was. So 4 days of top 8 players from each single elim bracket goes on to the league play stages. League play stages is just 4 different leagues going on. Seeded, of course, so the winner is then top seed of each league. Runners up then become the second seed, 2 semi-finalists, third and fourth from it. You get the idea. And then the top 2 from each league goes on through to a double elimination bracket in the finals. I don't know if I want to give off what, a little bit more deeper as we're looking to do some good marketing about it. But basically the whole idea of this is we've got some absolute nuts graphics going on. Big shout out to Andy Designs for doing
Who also
a lot
designed
of
the assets for RLAfterShock, by the way.
Yep.
Massive shout outs to Andy. I love the guy.
As well as a big shout out to Ed Nottingham, who might not be so known within the Rocket League scene, but he's doing our 3D. He's the lad that did the announcement video there, and that is just a very, very small taste of what we're going to be. The whole idea is to be this sort of like, what if a tournament took place in the world of Rocket League? What if there was lore to Rocket League, like a story behind it? And this is like you're playing in the game, near enough following that sort of like dream. You playing with your little toy cards on the map when you're like, 6, 7 years old. What if you had that, but in a tournament presentation, which is something that many orgs step away from. I know, Jay, when we were talking about this, you were there.
Yeah,
I'm
going to hold my hands up.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold my hands up. When Bacon pitched the initial idea, I thought to myself, this sounds fucking ridiculous. But I honestly, I'm actually kind of excited of how things have developed and how the tournament is going to be looking out for, because, just the way things are set up, it looks like this is going to be one of the really, really fun sort of events. And again, I'm really, really hyped about sort of the RPG element, the role-playing element. Obviously not, RPG, full-blown RuneScape or anything like that, but the fucking hell, wouldn't that be a thing? RuneScape crossover with Rocket League, ain't that fun? And as well as that, can I just confirm that we're on the broadcast team? Like, I think that's probably a safe bet for everybody at this point. Like, we're going to be doing it. We've had a lot of great back and forths between us and the Rewind staff and the other guys that are on the casting team as well. We've actually got some really big plans, especially for that final week. Ooh. So I'm not going to say anything unless you want to say it, but make sure you keep tuned with this one. It's going to be a really fun month.
Yeah, it is definitely going to be really fun. Yeah, I don't want to announce it yet because we do have, a little bit of marketing come out, as you do when you're running an org, so I don't want to say it, but it is just going to be absolutely hype. And we're taking this in a different angle. We're a community org, so we've got more, I would say, freedom than your big tournament organizers, purely because we can make these risks and try something brand new. If you're doing RLCS, it's got to be the same each time, doesn't it? You don't really change up the formula about how things run. You just change slight styles and graphics. Us, we can try doing this more role play aspect to it. And it's not the biggest change in the world because you don't have, you can't just suddenly go, okay, we're now doing the Renegade Cup of December is Snow Day. No, that's not going to happen at all. It's still the same Rocket League. But
that would be a fucking gimmick and a half, though, wouldn't it? Holy shit.
Imagine, I would love to do that. We tried to do this at tournaments before. The biggest reason why you don't really see drop shot, hoops, or rumble, whatever tournaments, is one, casters don't know how to cast that, and I can't blame them. It's completely different. And two, the players can't play it. Like, if you're a grand champion hoops, I tip my hat to you because I may be a champ 1, champ 2 in all the other normal modes, but hoops, I'm plat 1. And it's the same reasoning for...
good on you for reaching fucking plat at that stage. I barely break out a fucking silver these days. Like, holy crap.
Rumble, I'm champ 2. I do not know how I got that.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah,
I was laughing the other day. I was playing with McLovin. He was Diamond 3 when we first qualified, and I was champ 2, and I was just like, hey, fuck you.
McLovin's a
Sticking it to
diamond?
him.
What? Hold on.
No, he's climbed up now, but when we got our ranks...
Oh, okay, I see. That makes sense. All right, fair play. But yeah, just to put people's minds at ease, like obviously it's not going to be something massively extreme. It's not like we're going to go to the point of fucking, like cosplaying in the middle of the stream. Like we're not doing anything like that. But I'm really excited for the change of pace, I think, overall for the Renegade Cup, because it is something that was kind of needed. Because obviously we've had the past 2 months for Rocket Baguette and Thunderdome, and those tournaments have been great tournaments. It's just that they're very standard, and I think that the Renegade Cup was the great opportunity for community tournament organizers to actually break the mold and do something a bit different. And if it works,
actually,
great.
I do want to say, like, have a little view on that. Like, the Grand Prix was very standard. They always put on sleek graphics. For me, when I look at the Thunderdome, not to bag on the guys at all, but I always found it like their graphics and that didn't set, like, for me, the cameras, like it disjoints it. And this is like what I'm talking about. If you're doing this sort of like Thunderdome Mad Max style, then you've got casters in the bed, or you've got a standard studio setup. For me, that sort of breaks the atmosphere you're trying to do. And we're going very heavily into this, going, if we're doing it, we've got to do this right. So, for example, all the way through qualifiers and league play, there's not going to be any caster cams because, like I said, you don't want casters in the bedroom. That breaks the atmosphere. You can change your voice and play on your words, but you cannot change what your bedroom looks like, or what your office looks like. So we're very much trying to make this as authentic as possible to what the dream is, the neon dream is. That was trash.
It's going to be... Yeah, I was trying to find a way to segue away from that as far as possible, but there you go. The Neon Dream from Rival. I'm going to constantly, honestly, that you couldn't have picked the fucking the worst name. It's just Rival and Rewind. Like, we're gonna get them confused.
Hey, they were PRL beforehand. They copied us. They were.
That is true, actually, right? Fuck you, strangest. Fuck you, strangest. I love you. But yeah, that's the Neon Dream by Rewind Gaming, the next of the EU monthlies. Do you want to? We'll leave a speculation for the final monthly later on for another episode of the show. Still got many more episodes to go and a lot more content that we have to deliver today. And our feature of today is going to be some predictions. We had a Reddit thread go up recently about the expectations of Rocket League in the new year. A user by the name of, when I can bring this up appropriately, a user by the name of, I'm going to struggle to say this, Reparanko is a We Dem Girls fan, put out a thread on Reddit saying it's time to give the details on the RLCS expansion plans sooner, better than later. And obviously this is going to be something that comes up time and time again because that's how the Rocket League scene rolls. Essentially saying sooner organizations and investors hear about what kind of future is planned for Rocket League, the more likely we'll see investment in the scene and actual details, not vague daydreams. Harkening back to the point about the the in-game items, which we covered back in
like the perfect
and
time
cosplay
of
as well. That's another thing as well. I think that was mentioned in the Reddit thread as well. But just to keep it back to the esports specific stuff. Obviously, in-game items were announced, and when it came out, we were hyped as shit. We were like, yeah, okay, this is gonna be this is gonna be hype as hell. But now that the hype has died down initially, I can kind of see where a lot of people kind of got caught up in the hype because it was a very vague announcement and it was a little bit what is actually happening in regards to in-game items. So I just want to probe your thoughts really quickly on the topic at hand before we dive into some of the community members who aired their thoughts pretty hardcore on Reddit and Twitter.
So of course, Sonics is very vague about everything. I think that's then now coming down to a point. I'm just going to use that crossplay party aspect where initially they're like, oh, beta's going to come out in January of this year, like way back. And then it just kept getting delayed and they don't want to do that. It's unprofessional. So by them just saying, oh, we're giving you a rough target in the future, they aren't lying to anyone. They're not setting ambitions or whatever, like getting people's hopes up. They're just saying it's in the works. For me, how vague they are with this and trying to, I would say, make up excuses by saying they've got to come up with a whole brand new system which when we talked about this,
that's bullshit. That was the one thing that we called off the bat. Just like, no, mate, just get the in-game items in the fucking game. Like,
it's so hard to actually be original in all of this aspect, especially when it involves money. So it had already been done before, and I think it's just pretty much they haven't. I actually don't think they have started on it yet. Like, it's probably in the next section of plans, because we know they're doing the winter stuff at the moment, so I'd imagine a new map, maybe a new loot box. They're doing a new Rocket Pass, because the current Rocket Pass ends, I think, quite soon. I think it ends like the end of this weekend or something. It's very soon. It's the end of this month for sure. And so they're currently doing that. And once they finish that, and then they'll go on to starting the esports stuff, and then also doing the next Rocket Pass, and like trying to do that over a long period of time. So them setting it this far ahead in the future, I think, is just them acknowledging it's going to take them time, and they want to make it look right. The problem there is it should have already been out by now. It realistically, all items should have been out by season 3, season 4 of Rocket League. Season 4, I'm going to say, because that was when we had.
I mean, just according to Cloudfield, like he said that was the plan from season 1, have it in by season 3 and 4, and now we're almost, we're getting a pilot plan in season 7, which is like, okay, great, but and especially with the expansion plans as well, like things do need to start getting set up for more teams in the RLCS. I don't even think that's a controversial topic at this point. We need to start looking towards it. That's just certainly my opinion. Tylacto seems to disagree, and I do see you in chat, buddy. Thanks for tuning in once again. But on Reddit, he put out a comment which got 78 upvotes as of the time of this screenshot, saying, tending to new regions and players that will in turn bring more regions of viewership and publicity is greater than tending to a few more teams in your primary regions who still have their chance and just haven't taken them regardless of how unforgiving. I can't see anything changing soon. I want to probe your initial thoughts about this, because I am getting mixed messages from Tylacto on this post. Like, I'm not sure if he's saying, I know he's in the chat, but again, everyone's in the firing line on this show. But I'm not sure if, I'm sure he can probably clarify as well, possibly. I'm not sure if you're saying that, that more regions is probably greater than trying to increase team sizes in the RLCS. For me personally, it's certainly like, they're definitely like they're both about up the top of the priority list. Which one's above other? Which one is above the other? Like that's a bit more of a nuanced debate, I think, more than anything else. But to be honest, I think both need to happen. And yeah, I do understand your pessimism as to why you don't see anything happening anytime soon. That's psionics for you at this point in time. But that's why we need discussion like this, so we can try and push us all in the right direction.
So my thoughts is, for 2019, Psionics' aim is going to be adding in season 8, so next season. Is it season 8 or season 7? What are we on? It's season 7. Sorry. Jesus, it's just been going for so long, Jay. That's why, with
this
3
whole
year
week has been a blur. Like, this whole month has been a blur. Like, I've just been staying up super late nights doing Asian CS for IEM. Like, I'm fucking out of it, dude. So continue.
The thought is, season 7, you're going to see South America added, SAM, SAM, whatever you want to call it, which I always find quite weird, because if you look on Reddit and Twitter and that, people ask, what is SAM? You're just there like, that's a generic term for South America. That's should be, geography. There you go. But that's the aim, I think, is for season 7, with season 8 being added in Asia. So 2019 for Psionics is getting RLCS with those in, 2 teams from each of those regions, making it what that then adds up to being 14 teams. I'm right. I'm just trying to do the maths in my head. It makes it 16 teams, in RLCS, which is a good round number for a tournament. This is why at the same time I don't think they're pushing, because if they were to then add more, if they were to change up the RLCS format, let's say in EU and NA, that's just going to skew everything going sideways. I think that's too much for Psionics to be handling right now. And like Tylacto put in that post, they're focusing on getting new audience in. We're starting to see Rocket League drop off in EU and NA viewership-wise. VOD's a bit about the same, so that means there's a lot of people still watching RLCS, but just not live. They don't feel like they have to watch it live, which isn't a bad thing at all. I'm definitely one of those people where, especially with NA stuff, I won't watch NA live these days. I did last season. This season, I'm like, I'll just watch highlight matches. Cloud9 versus NRG. I'm watching that. When it's, I don't know, Allegiance versus FlyQuest, I'll probably skip on it,
Yeah, that's part of the reason why. That's part of the reason why I'm not too fussed about the live viewers on AfterShock, because we don't get that many. But when it comes to podcast plays and VOD views, like our numbers are through the fucking roof. Yeah. So like I understand that, and also I just want to give a big shout out to Tylacto for clarifying that he does think the regions is a bigger improvement, which is fair enough. Each their own. Again, I think that they're about the same in terms of their what's it fucking. What am I trying to fucking say? My thing has gone through the. What was I talking about? Bacon. I've actually lost my train of thought.
But basically, the top end of South America and the top end of Asia at the moment, I think, could rival the bottom end of America. And definitely from this season anyway, of EU, the bottom end of EU. It's all coming down to, this looks like what OCE was back when OCE joined. So that's a good sign. We've seen Chiefs coming out, what was it, 4th in LAN? Absolutely nuts. So it's just that case of get them in now before it is too late. And they're definitely branching out to new audiences, new esports teams. You've got to remember, because the ones we currently got fighting over spots now within EU and NA sort of like flip across each other. They sort of, Western esports is different to Eastern esports in like Asia and that. And then it's a little bit different when you get orgs from Brazil and South America and that as well. They're sort of like, it's just basically little cultural differences. So it opens up to even more esports orgs to come on in. It's just, those esports items need to be in for next LAN, because otherwise these teams aren't going to be fancying it in. And that all just comes down to Psyonix needs to be very open, even if it's just in the back end, 2 businesses. Basically, they put out a, I'm not going to say a LinkedIn post or whatever, but 2 businesses where they can literally 2 orgs where they just go, okay, just if you're interested, DM us. We'll get you assigned a non-disclosure agreement, and we'll send you all the information you want about our future plans, because we don't want to make it public yet. And that would just solve everything, I reckon, because there is no confidence at the moment. Well, you know what I mean, though. Everything that is within reason.
A good chunk of everything, I think, is what you're trying to say, right?
We're not going to send you our financials, but we'll tell you our roadmap, It's that case.
we're not going to, it's just like, what do you want of our Rocket League scene? Now we want your first name, address, social security, everything. You need to know all those details.
Okay, then, here you go. Psyonix hacked.
Psyonix hacked. Rocket League is dead. GG, boys. It's been fun. But yeah, I do want to go deeper into the regions issue, but I think that's more of an episode, a discussion for an episode later on down the line. Yeah, I think we're definitely going to set that up towards the end of the towards the end of the year. Obviously, we've still got a handful more shows to go in the last couple of months, but we will definitely revisit that. Thank you again, Tylacto, for contributing in the chat, and of course contributing as he always does on the Reddit threads and in general discussion. Moving on to some other thoughts as well. Ian Folletti, who is a writer for ESPN, I think he's done a couple of different Rocket League articles in the past. He's followed the scene pretty closely. He says it's a nice thought to get some information about RLCS expansion, but it's like it's not going to happen most likely, which I feel like again is sort of like the attitude of most people from this from the scene. They're just like, yeah, this is probably, I mean, it's nice, and we can say we need to do this, but are Psyonix actually going to say anything? Are they actually going to tell us about expansion plans? Are they going to actually act upon any sort of ideas and plans that they have in their own right? Like, what's going on behind the scenes, and will we ever know?
So for me, like I said just a little bit ago, 16 teams, if you added in the 2 extra regions to RLCS, that's a nice round number. So I don't see there ever being more than 4 teams in RLCS from NA and EU, and the 2 from the other regions. So this is more down to, it's a nice thought. You can see it there. In your head, it makes perfect sense. Let's expand NA and EU to be 16 teams. Let's make, those 2 top spots from league play locked in. You get to LAN, and the next 2, that's what the regionals are for. That's the sort of thought there. And you're like, oh yeah, they could do that. That's so fantastic. But it's more production cost because you've got to stream it. Remember, with RLCS, every single match is streamed. Rival series, they cut back on that, and for them, you look at it and go, why don't you just stream every match? You can do. It's just an extra week, but it's because production costs. And so here, adding that more on, with Rocket League looking like numbers are dropping, they're not going to put that risk in. So the expansion to other regions, and getting them to either be done a bit like how
that's going to cost more. That's going to cost so much more.
No, because you go to different companies. It's looking to me anyway like Rocket Street are being lined up to be the throwdown of South America, and it's a community org, so Science has a little bit more control of that. I don't know about Asia, how they do it, whether they would get in a Japanese company that already runs it.
That's where my argument comes from. It's going to cost so much more because the break into the Asian market is motherfucking difficult.
They would have to get an Asian org to already do it.
I know that they've already got Tencent is like doing distribution in China, but to break into Asia as a whole, like I remember, was it?
It's a whole different beast.
Was it Tasty from 1NE that tweet longer saying you need to counteract for every single different region? And there's only like one organization I can think of that does all of those, and that is actually Imber, who work with Starladder, one of my main employers in CSGO. And will they be willing to do that? Well, I mean, if you paid a high enough price, sure. But how much is that going to cost? Probably a shit ton more than it currently does to do the current RLCS season. And also probably will caveat. What? My computer has crashed. Oh no, am I still?
No, you're fine. You're back. Yep, you're
sorry. My monitors just went really dark for a second. And probably going to come with a caveat as well to reach out to their contacts from Starladder again, probably to include the CIS region, and then we're back into the conversation of gambling and shit because that's got to be a key sponsor in CIS. So it does kind of get quite complicated when you start looking at other regions. Again, we can probably go into more detail about this later on. But yeah, the general attitude of everyone is pretty dejected about this whole topic, I think.
And that's why I'm there in my head anyway. This year, they've got to start making those partnerships with ESL, with whatever, to make these other tournaments happen in the off season, so that then they've got that contact, with ESL, who again aren't massive in Asia as it is, but for them to then take a branch and be able to take their knowledge, because Sonics knows jack about Asia. I'm not being harsh in saying that. It's the same for South America, really, for them, because they've never operated in that region, tournaments and that. They only knew about NA and EU because they did the first 4 seasons alongside Twitch and just expanded upon that. So they need to hand this over. Like I said, Throwdown's a good example. I'd imagine with Throwdown's case, Throwdown aren't getting paid by Science to put that on, but they'd get the host or the tweets out, and all of that, and they're deemed as official. And then whatever money Throwdown makes from sponsorships and that on their end, they get a keep, because if you noticed on their ones, they had McDonald's sponsorships and all of that on Throwdown, which is purely for them to sort out themselves. I'm imagining that same sort of thing is going to be lined up for Asia and South America, with just those top teams going to LAN. And then that's where Sonics has the involvement with them.
And the cool thing about it is that Sonics don't need to, I know Sonics like to have their grip across everything. It's just better to partner with other organizations, it is a chokehold. And you brought up ESL, ESL will be a fantastic org to partner with, because ESL have been fucking funding their own tournaments for years. Decades even. They've been, Counter-Strike is their big game, and everyone knows that Counter-Strike has virtually zero developer interest other than 2 LANs a year, which is kind of the case. Yeah. It's sort of like the same case in Rocket League, except they don't sponsor anything except those 2 LANs a year. So ESL have essentially built the whole Counter-Strike scene on their own accord. They've done it off their own back. They're willing to fund the prize pools and get their own sponsorships and everything. Same thing with Starladder and Imber, and these are organizations that have massive connections in Asia. If you want to get into Asia, you partner with those guys, in my opinion. Again, biases and all everything. I'm employed by Starladder, so I'll throw that out there right away.
But how they operate, so you're looking at that going, they could run this. They know their stuff. They would just have to get a couple of consultants from the community. Like for Asia, you'd be looking straight at Tasty T from 1NE, because he would be an absolute lad. He's got so much knowledge about how Asia runs. Some of the lads from Rocket League India as well, and just basically get them on as consulting roles to help run it. It's the same as what happened. I'm just going to take the example of Gfinity setting up in Australia. They're on their second season now? No, second season, sorry. And they got near enough. They sort of snatched up a lot of the ESL Australia stuff, like the admins who are more doing it as a hobby, more doing it for free for ESL like you do, because it's your starting path into esports. But they just snatched them all up, brought them onto Gfinity, because they already had the knowledge of the scene. And Gfinity Australia seems to be doing pretty darn good over there.
Yeah, I'm actually just gonna sidetrack from the conversation for just a second, because this just got announced real quick. Fraser, if you want to check image dump and put that into the put that into the show real quick because I literally just seen this pop up on Reddit. And we were going to talk about this on a later week, just discussing about E-League matches. But because they've literally just fucking announced the matchups for the groups, we're just gonna fucking talk about them right now. Just to sidetrack from the topic in a moment's time. E-League have just announced their current matches, the teams that will be participating, if you will, in their next E-League Cup coming up on November 30th. We've got our first PSG versus Cloud9, Dignitas versus EG, Chiefs versus NRG, and We Dem Girls versus Flipside Tactics. Let's quickly just jump into this before we get back onto our main topic. Just like, what are our impressions of this one initially?
Again, it's just E-League running top 8 from LAN, so can't fault that. It's a good system.
Except PSG, I don't think. Were they a top 8 at LAN? I don't remember.
Yeah, PSG were top 8. They took down Tainted Minds, if I remember right. No, Cloud9 took down Tainted Minds, and PSG took down... I can't remember, but it was Tainted Minds and G2 that were 9th, 10th, whatever you want to call that barrier. You know, they were the bottom 2. And then the rest of these guys are the guys that had won at least one game. So yeah, this is pretty much standard stuff. So PSG being the weakest seed, apparently, going up against Cloud9. The flip side of that would be NRG going up against Chiefs, who came in 4th. So that's a bit weird there. But yeah, that is weird. I don't know how they've done the seeding for that, but hey, who knows? It might just be that they deem EG, because they don't have to follow the same seeding, you know? It's a different tournament. They don't have to use the direct seeding for LAN. They can just be there like, okay, we deem that Cloud9 and Dignitas are the 2 strongest seeds. So they're going to be from 2 different little groups. I don't know what the format is, so I'm going to have to quickly look up that. But otherwise,
I think it's the same as last time, round robin group stage and then going into a single elimination bracket. It's GSL group stage. GSL, yeah, it's double in GSL group stage. Yeah. So, that is actually right. So essentially, those top 2 matches are Group A, and the bottom 2 matches are Group B. So there we go. Groups of 4 double elim. I think that's actually an improvement overall from last time when E-League announced their cup to have round robin, because you'll know my biases.
I fucking love that actually from Tylacto there. These are pretty much just grudge matches. They work so well though. Cloud9 and Dignitas, you want to be in completely different groups. Of course, you want that to be your final. The redemption for Dignitas to knock out Cloud9, or Cloud9 stays on top. PSG and Cloud9, you're there looking at it going, yeah, I quite like that matchup. That'd be good fun. Flipside versus We Dem Girls, that is such a good rivalry, and I love that all the time. And then, of course, Chiefs. That's
a very curious. I don't know, man. Like, that's a bit weird. I don't know, because I wouldn't put that down as regular seeding, but it seems like they are just using the seedings from the LAN and where everyone faced up, placed into to use those instead. That's a bit of a weird decision from E-League's part. Again, I think you probably could get out with a better bracket than that, to be honest. Like,
I'm trying to look for the bracket now because
it's on Wikipedia. You can find it on the page.
Ah, okay. So I wasn't actually looking at Wikipedia. I was looking at their Twitch page. Like, oh, they must have posted a link to it all on their Twitch page, Twitter page. Sorry. Nah.
No, of course not.
That'd be too simple.
Too easy. It's too easy to do. We've got to be dedicated fans here, Bacon.
Like, literally, their Twitter, that post or whatever has a link to the tickets and a link to the Twitch page. You're just there like, give us more info. I want to know times of this, not just the first match time. I want a rundown, a schedule, some more information. I want to see the brackets there. Looking at Wikipedia now, it all makes sense. To me, the only thing that hurts really is that I don't want, Flipside and We Dem Girls
Flipside in the first match. That should really be
the same bloody bracket. Nah, that's harsh.
It's quite a lopsided group. I mean, the fact of the matter is one of those 3 teams is not going to make it to the playoffs, and that's just like, why? Why?
But then again, looking at that, 1st and 4th seed is Cloud9 and Chiefs, Dignitas being 2nd seed, We Dem Girls being 3rd seed. It makes sense. It's the seeding looks as if it was just pulled straight from RLCS, which is fair, but it's just like you're being doomed, EU, for doing actually quite good.
Exactly, like that's fucking stupid.
Just, yeah, I'm like I said, they could have changed up the seeding to try and split the regions a little bit, like to put 2 EU teams in either groups, but I'm not going to complain. They're just taking the seed in, so it makes sense how they do it. It's just me looking at that going, I don't want any of these three to drop.
Well,
you know?
Do you know what? Here's the way I'm going to see it. Here's the way I'm going to see it, right? At the end of the day, we've got 4 teams in E-League. NA has 3 teams, so we are, as per podcast standards and podcast dictation, we are the better region in all of Rocket League. So fuck you, North America. Let's get back to the main topic of the podcast now.
See, Talado's just pointing that out actually as well, and I love this from him getting involved and actually getting right into grip of this. We'll have to get him on as guest next
honestly,
time.
yeah, we're gonna get you on as a guest at some point, Talato. I fucking love you.
But literally, for me, that bugs me is that 7th and 8th seed in one group, where it should have been the 8th and 6th seed, and then the other group has 5th and 7th or something like that, because that is stacking it way too much. Like, I'm looking at that and going, Group A is a lot easier to get through than Group B. Group B, I'm going to say even EG has a chance to make it through there. I think, like, with how they played at LAN, they have, don't get me wrong, it's a slim chance because it's Weedham Girls, but I think it's definitely the favourite to go through the losers final, and the flip side to be that upset, but EG could make it through. They're really growing as they go on. From the opposite group, I'm looking at it and just going, it's Cloud9 and Cheers from LAN. NRG could cause an upset there, but PSG did not look good at LAN, really, and so that's an easier Group A.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, let's move on from that now, because I am conscious of time. We only have 20 minutes left on this segment, because we still have to get through a couple of the more juicy opinions in our discussion in regards to the future of Rocket League. So that's been E-League. Fantastic. Thanks for announcing it in the middle of our fucking show. So we have to completely forego our show plans so we can get back on track.
No, we're just hot off the press. We're just always at the
we are on
time.
the pulse. We are on the pulse in the show. We know exactly
breaking
what we're doing
news. We need to get breaking news banner, Jay. I want this now.
I was gonna speak to Andy about potentially getting some like animations done for like stingers and shit. So we might actually come to fruition a little bit later on. But all spoilers. Let's talk about the future of Rocket League now. Because again, we have some more juicy and spicy opinions to share. Did we talk about stacks yet? I don't think we talked about
haven't
stacks.
done stacks' meme dictions yet.
I fucking love Stacks. I just want to say right now, like, I'm not a fan of his casting style. I think he's a great addition to the talent team, however, and I also love his memes. This is fantastic. He says, quote, "They're making some massive cuts. I'm going to be desk host, analyst, solo caster, interviewer, stage host, and state fun mechanics teaching guy." I love Stacks. I absolutely love Stacks, because again, it's just that cynical sarcasm. It's just like, yeah, fuck yeah. Just, you know, I absolutely love this shit, because again, it kind of echoes the point similar. It's like, you know, obviously, as you were saying, Psyonix are cutting budget. They ain't got much money to work off of, and Rocket League is currently seeing a drop in viewership. It's
Could you imagine the Stacks just go up there? He's finally grown out his beard, so he's got the findable carpet Subi side. And then, like, he turns around, he plays a different caster, and he's doing both play-by-play and color cast. They're doing that old,
just like smack on a massive beard, give a throwback to the Funable carpet of old. That'd be amazing. Oh my god. Psyonix, someone make that happen, please.
Can we please get that as an April Fool's skit? Because this is one thing, and I hope that they pick this up, actually. If we're talking predictions for the future, more content. We have no Rocket League content. Like, there's blog posts, which they get the guys to do. But who the fuck I'm saying who the fuck reads blog posts? I do personally, and it's like, you know, these little
but like the reason why we read blog posts,
YouTube videos are just so easy to do, and I don't know why they haven't done it.
But the reason why we read blog posts is because we are like hardcore fans. Like we're nerds in Rocket League, and again, it kind of feeds into our job, because obviously we've got to produce this podcast once every week, so it comes with the territory almost. But you know, stuff like overtime is gone, and that would have been great if you had a little overtime segment split in between like breaks. Like shit, that
overtime should have just been one. It should have been one long stream, and then just like it was. But then basically overtime was perfect. They just did it when it was too early, if that makes sense. Overtime should have been starting around season 5 time instead of them dropping it in season 5. It seems really dumb. Don't get me wrong, it's more cost, more production cost, but it makes it so much better, because it's your casual viewers that is what you're benefiting most. Because if you notice that, the casual audience is what's dropping away. I found it really weird when you do come up in Rocket League matches against people, and they're like, "Oh, what's an RLRS? What's an RLCS?" You're just there going, "Huh?" What? Do you not see that live button right there at the start of your game? And Sonic needs to fix that. And we're talking, this is Champ 1, Champ 2 sort of players that don't know what an RLCS is. And you're like, how?
I love it how you say what an RLCS is and not
what is an
RLCS.
But that is how dumb it is, you know? So there is something going wrong that Sonics is not tapping into their casual audience. I'm just going to say, I still don't understand why they're plugging away at WWE, especially from an EU perspective. We don't get that. Maybe it's a little bit more of a crossover in NA where they're trying to go for a younger audience and that. But I don't get why they're not throwing advertisement space on, I don't know, football or something where it's a little bit more well-watched, you know? Just imagine, like, just in a general, let's say, Premiership ad, you know, along those little banners alongside, just Rocket League coming up on there, car shoots across, whatever. That's going to get so much more viewership than the money they're plugging into WWE, which is apparently quite expensive as well. I get that WWE has very hardcore fans in their, like, marketing demographics and that, but throwing it out to many more people than just the select few, which they've already been doing for like 2 years, I think would benefit more because it's more attractive to just see a car drive across and you go, oh, let's Google that, you know?
Well, I think the problem in terms of content is obviously, you know, what Psyonix needs to try and do just to supplement the broadcast and also to be able to use that content to try and drive a casual audience. I think Overtime was fantastic for that. You know, I feel like it was great. It kind of covered off the RLCS. It also covered off their various different community tournaments going on. You know, I remember when we had the the open qualifiers, and they send them off to, like, you know, SPL and PRL and all those other organizations that did an open qualifier bracket. I remember we did the open qualifiers. It was great, and obviously we got shout outs on season 4, and we got shout outs on that Overtime back then. So it kind of gives everybody a primer as to what's going on. And I'm just questioning, you know, why isn't that being pushed to the front page of the Rocket League scene? Like, you know, what's the RLCS? You may have seen these tags. How about you tune into Overtime to find out what's happening? But instead, they've left it to guys like us who make content because we want to. And even then, I don't even think any of this show is getting on RLCS. We would never fucking do it, like, for real.
Overtime, to be fair, now. Overtime, by the end of it, I can understand.
I'm going to immediately disagree with that, because if we didn't have no Overtime content, then we didn't have any AfterShock content. So
that is true, I guess. But I think Overtime, with the whole scene sort of getting a little bit more cynical over time, they didn't want this sort of happy-go-lucky thing. The casters are even starting to, if you've noticed it on Twitter, a lot of the casters are now starting to get a little bit not pleased with Psyonix. Yeah, you can definitely see it. And they probably were a little bit worried about this sort of, like, I would say false persona, because I'm always like, the best way to do anything is just to be honest and open. Because once you start BSing people, then that just hurts your brand. That just hurts people's thoughts of you, you know? So you just keep it open and that. And Psyonix, that's why I'm just there, like, just lay a roadmap out. Because this is the biggest thing for me that as an enthusiast is hurting. You know, it's just not knowing what is coming up. Everyone can make predictions. Like I'm saying, I reckon Sam is going to be in the season 7, and then Asia's going to be season 8. But I think at the same time, I'm there going, that might be a bit ambitious, and that is worrying. You know, because otherwise everything's just going to stagnate. Like I'm there, sort of in the back of my mind, going, "Yeah, I think this is just going to stagnate as we continue on." But I'm at the front, of course, going, I want new things in this, because you can only go up, essentially. But I don't know.
And a lot of people don't know. For example, Cloud Fuel. Nice segue in to our next reaction, which is our penultimate action, because we have saved the best for last, as we always do. But obviously, Stacks continued on to Twitter saying, you know, Season 7 preseason just began. What are your bold, way too early predictions for RL Esports? And Cloud Fuel puts out a number of points. Season format change, World Championship format change, which obviously comes back into what we're talking about here. More LAN events than 2018 and 2017 combined. That's definitely not fucking happening. Addition of SAM events, more community events, more breakout rookie sensations, more dramatic Golden 7 overtimes. Another long-time vet will fall out of the RLCS, and in-game items. I love the cynicism of Cloud Fuel right here, because he's just straight up like, because the question is, what are your bold predictions? And Cloud feels like these are all bold predictions of what will actually come to fruition. And one of the key things there as well there is in-game items. He's suggesting he doesn't think in-game items will actually come through in 2019. So this is obviously a heavily speculated topic. A lot of people have chimed in on this one. Obviously, we expressed our cynicism just a moment ago.
Well, no, from reading that's Cloudfuel thinks these are all going to happen, and he's like,
No, mate, because read the question again. What are your bold, way too early predictions? So it's implying that this is the things that are not going to happen in 2019.
And yeah, I get that. So Cloudfuel. So from my taking of that is like, me saying that I reckon Sam's going to come in season 7. That's like Sam's actually going to come in season 8. It's going to take them that extra half year is what I take from it. And I don't know, because this is a lot. And I know Cloudfuel, I don't think he's saying this as like a joke. It's a weird
That's the thing, because when on the first draft of our show plan, I put this down as a news piece because I thought he was just being satirical. But to be honest, the more and more I read it and the more and more I consider the current state of Rocket League, it sounds less and less like satire and more like, okay, actually, these are fucking problems and they're probably not going to get fixed.
2019, no, I think 2019 is going to be a year which Psyonix does fix things, because 2018 has been a little bit lackluster. So it feels like it's all building up. The season format change, I've already said, no, don't think that's happened. Worlds will have to change because the addition of Sam, that's like a hand-in-hand sort of thing. More LAN events in 2018, 2017. Well, Gfinity's a LAN, so that's 2 straight there easily. 4 from both regions. And, you just add those up. Another X Games I could see happening, maybe 2 DreamHacks next year. But then what else is going on,
Nope. Sorry, I'm gonna immediately back out of DreamHack right there because they've got a really good thing going with CS:GO right now, and I don't think they even want to touch, especially if they have to keep asking Psyonix to post up a prize pool. Like DreamHack would happily make a DreamHack Open tournament for one of their LAN events, but they don't, because Psyonix are just like, no, you've got to go through us first, and because they want to put $50,000, $100,000 in prize pool, Psyonix immediately put a cap on that. Like you can't essentially without discussing it with us prior, and again that causes the massive negotiation thing, which is a massive hassle. I know DreamHack would love to put on more Rocket League tournaments, but they only put on Leipzig because it was more convenient for everybody at that time. And when CS:GO is booming, it's making loads and loads of money. DreamHack have actually had a resurgence by increasing their production value, so now CS:GO loves them again. Plus their Masters tournaments, which are also a massive hit. Like I doubt that's my bold prediction. My very, very bold prediction: we'll see another DreamHack in 2019 for Rocket League.
But at the same time, do you count bring your own PC?
I don't count those. I don't count those. That's the reason why I'm saying. That's the reason why I'm saying I doubt for another DreamHack.
Because we're starting to see
BYOC. It's like calling Epic LAN as a significant tournament in the Rocket League space. It's fucking nuts. Anyone can turn up and just do whatever. Yeah,
hopeful. That's my bold prediction. Epic LAN becomes the biggest Rocket League LAN in the UK.
That would be. I mean, to be fair, they kind of already are. But with the way that DreamHack are currently setting out with the BYOCs, that means they can just leave that as the side thing. Rocket League can have their own little comeuppance, and then they can run the main tournaments where they've got stuff like CS:GO going on. They've also got a good thing going with Rainbow Six as well. So Rocket League is competing on a pretty big scale, and to have these restrictions not in place on those other games, it means that DreamHack just don't seem to have a whole lot of interest essentially.
So for me, I reckon there's going to be 2. Tylacto even saying 4, and I'll go on to what
I'm going to query him about that. Actually, I'm going to query him about that while you do your point. Yeah. Why do you think 4 DreamHacks as Bacon continues his point?
I think that one of them is going to purely be like a bit like Atlanta last year. Early this year, because it was at the very start Leipzig, where there wasn't a CS:GO one, and then I think there's going to be a second one which is alongside a CS:GO one, but it's like at summer or something, the biggest ones, or they could do, say, 4 smaller events, a little bit like Masters, where it's not at a big venue. I could see DreamHack getting some sort of deal where they do that, where you're talking a small venue where it's very dedicated and people go out to it. But I think that's not too far-fetched for DreamHack to do that, as Psyonix has already got the partnerships. I think, like I've been saying, I would love ESL to get involved, but Psyonix is sort of I wouldn't say burnt that bridge, but they've just completely ignored ESL to such a degree that I don't think ESL wants to work with them, really. They would love it because it's good business or whatever, but I think Psyonix, they've got a good thing going with E-League, they've got a good thing going with DreamHack. So say you could have Rocket League Masters or whatever, Masters tag is taken for CS, but you get that idea of 4 LAN events going on throughout the whole of 2019. I could see it happening.
Again, it's with DreamHack specifically. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I do see Talactor just saying, why not? That's not exactly an explanation, buddy. I'm sorry. Just, you know, I'm going to my point as to why I think maybe he might have inside information. And in fair, if that's the case, then fair play. I'll hold my hands up. But as it stands right now, I'm still very, very skeptical of DreamHack as a whole. Again, I'd like to see the cap lifted, increase that prize pool from 5,000 to 50,000, and we could see a fucking Star Series show up, and we could see a more DreamHack Opens show up, and we could see more like side or headline events from.
So not looking at the schedule for next year, by the way.
But you know, like again, so many different tournament organizers that I think would love to get involved in Rocket League, and again, if that was the case, just that one restriction. And then we'd be golden, I think. But, you know, that's Cloud Fuel. And now we move on to Frost. Like I said, we saved the best for last.
Oh, yeah.
And as usual, when any conversation comes up in Rocket League, Frost is usually there responding with his cynicism from the side of the Flipside Tactics camp. Back in the World Championships, he posted out a twit pic of him at the merch stand. It was like, there's no team jerseys. What a surprise. So if there's anyone to be angry about anything in Rocket League, it's probably like the top 2 would be him and Cloud Fuel. And Frost is fucking pissed with the way that things are going. Obviously, he put this comment on here saying, won't happen. They made an announcement about items that was not discussed with us. They continue to make decisions without asking people with more experience, and then use we are still a small company as an excuse for every mistake. The next RLCS isn't even being discussed with anyone. At RLCS, Psyonix wouldn't take meetings for teams and organizations. So 2019 is going to be quite the experience. Good or bad, it will be entertaining at least. Ye God. I could go down this rabbit hole further, but it wouldn't help anything. Then a comment in response to that came in from a guy quoting him saying they continue to make decisions without anybody asking. And so when they announced org systems, the question is, when they announced org item system for the end of season 7, and they said they had to create a completely new system, I wanted to destroy something. And Frost said, I walked out of the house. They announced during our boot camp for RLCS, no one was happy.
Ooh.
Even the players were suspect of that announcement, which is like, fuck. Essentially, because we were all under the impression when the org items things came out that, you know, this was the hand that was forced out of Psyonix, because Cloud Fuel came, he said he heard that all the team owners came in and wrote letters out and said, you know, fucking let's do this shit, let's actually get in-game items, else we're gonna walk. I would have thought that Flipside would have been on the forefront of that because Frost is Frost. But apparently that's not the case. That's based off of his own testimony. That's pretty insane. And it does kind of show a bit of the fucked up nature about what's going on behind the scenes in Rocket League.
Yeah, like, there's... For me, considering the CEO of Flipside, one of the
OG organization of Flipside, by the way.
And he does not care anymore. He's just completely going out and BMing on Psyonix. Just makes me go, okay, there's clearly some bad blood going on between these two, and he's explained why. You just got to be there, like Psyonix just go, okay, we need to patch this now, because we do not want one of the current orgs that is still sticking in it for as far as we know. How long, who knows? But bad mouth on us, because then other orgs who know Flipside's a reputable brand would just look at it and go, oh, if he's having problems with it, we're just going to have problems as well. They've got to improve their image.
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah, like it's a bit of a shit show behind the scenes. And again, if there's anyone to be more angry about it, it will be Frost, because Flipside were the OG dudes. They were the OG guys. They were, you know, the forefront of organizations coming into the scene. And again, it's so fucking tragic to see this shit kind of go down the way that it has for Frost as well. You know, serious shit needs to be done about this. Like, again, we can't echo the statements enough. Like, guys, let's fix the stigma. Let's fix the problems in Rocket League together. You know, a thread went up last night about this time yesterday Some guy called Plasma saying you need to use this community more. I'm done defending your silence and inactivity. And to be honest, I think a lot of people have the same sort of attitude. Certainly this thread does. A lot of the activity on Twitter, again, we've spoken about it vehemently on this podcast. Like, I think there's a lot of people that are done at the moment.
Yeah. Just a quick little note as well, because may have done a little bit of digging in. Preliminary online tournaments for DreamHack Leipzig next year. Just saying. We could see this on the DreamHack website. It's just down as a Rocket League tournament, so it's not a bring your own console tournament, but 27th of January. So maybe that's just a placeholder for now. Don't know, because if you remember from Leipzig last year, there was NA ones and EU like auto promotion into the DreamHack, but who knows? Maybe that's on the cards. You know, it's just on their website. I'll literally just put it on the Leipzig.de, so DreamHack-Leipzig.de/agenda. I'll link it in chat now for anyone that is interested. But there is 2 stages of online events for the 27th of January. Who knows? Like I said, that's one DreamHack I reckon will happen, because it's perfectly in the off season.
That is true. Okay, and maybe there might be some credence to some events coming on in DreamHack, but again, that's just the one thing. Again, we need more than just one DreamHack. We need more than just one LAN not supported by Sonic. So,
Jay, there's been another Rocket League update.
I've just seen that, to be honest. I don't even think it's fucking worth covering, because all it is Xbox One support and then something else like, yeah, okay, great.
Well, it's the HDR for Xbox One X, ain't it? That's more.
Yeah, I mean, we're not Xbox players. We're PC players. So whatever, let's move on. Do you want to cut the mailbag? Because we are running short on time. But
we'll go to mailbag. I think we're done with the future of Rocket League. We've gone for enough. It's just going to be a lot of regurgitation.
We're done with Rocket League as a whole. We're done with Rocket League as a whole.
AfterShock makes it to 10 episodes, and that is it.
And that's it. GG. Well, how do you feel about PUBG? Right, let's talk about. It is a lot of fun to watch. I've been casting it recently. It's been fucking baller. So. Yeah. Right. Let's do it to one mailbag then. Frostbite, the legend that he is, I think he's contributed the most mailbag questions so far on the show.
He lives in the mailbag, I hear.
He lives in the mailbag. Like he's just there tossing those letters about, like, you know, creating new ones out of scrap paper. Like the dude's a legend, and I love him. So he asks, with how many cars there are, do you think that a system like in MOBAs where certain champions/cars can get banned? And if you don't know how League of Legends works, basically there's loads of different heroes that can counter each other and counter each other, and you sort of create a team comp based off of 5 players who have different skills against 5 players who also have different skills entirely. And the question is on this one is that, can you put the same sort of phase of sort of like picking and banning certain vehicles around the strengths of those vehicles and those and the people that play them? And to be honest, I'm going to start things off by saying no. They're just too similar. There's very, very minor differences in the way that hitboxes in cards work, because they're all the same speed.
Boo, no. I want this. Even though you are correct, they're all pretty much the same hitbox, height adjusted, whatever. I would fucking love this for the entertainment value. The problem being... It
adds nothing!
No, the problem being... well, I would say I'd love to see more gizmos. I'm bored of Octanes and Batmobiles and all of that. And now Dominus is coming on. I quite like that, to be honest. But players are just such girls, like little babies. They just want to stick to their Octane and they won't go to anything else. As soon as... What was it? Yuki, I'm going to call him out now because he couldn't have the black Dakias or whatever, had to use the Cristianos at LAN. Beforehand, he was like, oh, this is me ruined for LAN because I can't have my wheels. I'm just there like, grow the fuck up, dude. They're just wheels. It makes no difference. I am triggered by, like, it's little superstitions. I get that. Don't, like, take it the wrong way, but just grow the hell up. Jesus. I would love this. I have actually suggested this at tournaments in the past and got near enough blanked purely because they're like, oh no, but players want to use the Octane, players want to use that. I'm like, fuck them. Viewers want to see a gizmo. They want to see a scarab. And at the end of the day, the viewers should, I think, in a lot of sense, take precedent, because that is where tournament orgs are making their money, is from the viewership in that, and having these little gimmicks, having these little nuances to your tournaments actually make you a better tournament organizer. If everyone's doing the same tournaments, just copy paste it gets stale and boring. That's my thoughts anyway.
Fucking hell, I didn't expect you to go on a rant. Yeah. Like I've had 3 in AfterShock history, and this is your first one about fucking car hitboxes. Holy shit!
Car banning system, which I so badly want. Don't get me wrong, not in official events, but a community cup doing it, I would love to do, but I've been turned down every single time, and it makes me sad. It gives me the big espresso.
I disagree on the basis of that. Yeah, again, they're all so similar. There's small adjustments. Essentially, every single hitbox is actually just a rectangle, or a rectangle. What is it? A rectangular cube, whatever the fuck it's called. And yeah,
cuboid,
whatever. Cuboid. There you go.
Make my head hurt here.
I failed math. Shut up. Right. So essentially, that's all they are, just height adjusted. So the stuff like the Batmobile is like slightly more thinner, but the Octane is a bit more thicker. And that's it. That doesn't make much difference. That's all just personal preference. And so stuff like the Scarab, that's also just this box, just a box fucking hitbox. A cube hitbox. It's the terminology, right?
See, what is wrong with that? If the Octane is banned, just
but that's the thing. But that's the thing though. Doing a ban system doesn't actually add anything. Like if it was something like Tylacto said in the chat, if we had non-standard map meta and we used stuff like Badlands, for example, then yeah, I can understand a reason for vetoing that if you can find a way to play around it. But for me,
again, that's something I've suggested and wanted to do, but
that makes sense because that actually changes something pretty significant in the gameplay. But if you're just doing car bans, nah, sorry, I don't see it happen.
Actually, I think the problem with it is that you can only do this from a community or perspective. I'm going to go from being the car ones to let's talk about map bans, like unstandardized maps. If you could do a pick and ban system for that, players would not be interested in it. I mean, already, unless it's $1,000, and even then it's a little bit borderline, players like bigger team names, which are the ones you're trying to get into, aren't interested in it. So let's just say, for example, Rival do $1,000 pick and ban system tournament on unstandardized map. Now, Tylacto, you're in chat, so just say if you would be interested in this or not. Just to give, a shout of an idea, because you're a player, it's healthy. But I think lots of players, at that level, don't care. $1,000 isn't enough. It's more them just want to get into tournaments and use it as a bit of scrimming. So this pick and ban system using the unstandardized maps, it's not what they normally play, so they don't really care for it. And it just comes down to then the bubble players playing it purely because they want that money. The system they don't really care for. They'll just bitch about it because, it's not the normal meta. Tylacto would like to do it, but it wouldn't be able to convince teammates. I think that's the problem. Everyone now, because it's all standard, no one wants to deviate away from it. And that annoys me so much because I'm definitely the type of person that really wants unstandardized maps. For me, I've already said it in the past, I want maps 1, 3, and 5 to be the standard maps, and 2 and 5 to be a pick ban system for these unstandardized maps. For me, that would make Rocket League just so much better because it adds strategy. Team Secret could be the masters of Tokyo Underpass, but then flip side are so good at the original Wasteland. It just adds so much more depth to the game. That's my opinion anyway.
Well, I mean, everyone has their own different opinions. Again, I'm not sure whether it would make the game better, whether it would make a better viewing experience. Again, for the cars specifically, I don't think it adds enough. For the maps, maybe it might do, but again, I don't think anything's going to change anytime soon. So thanks again, Frostbite, for the question. We much appreciate it. It's our only mailbag question of the week. So again, make sure that you join the Discord. If you're in the Twitch chat, that's !Discord to go ahead and ask even more mailbag questions in the mailbag section. If you're listening on the audio version or watching the YouTube VOD, then check the show notes in the descriptions for links all as necessary below. Let's get into our tournament recap then, because we have a few things to cover. We've only got 20 minutes to do it, so let's go through with Speedy Gonzalez. Thunderdome has begun, and it has obviously gone through round 2 in the last week. We have our 8 teams at the top end of the system, and you can see also right now what the pools are looking like. To break them down in specifics, we've got Pool 1, where Team Secret and French Fries made it out, beating out Hit or Miss and Private Esports. Pool 2 had Nordavind and MCon winning out over the likes of Rescue Whales and
No. Nordavind didn't make it through.
Didn't they? Oh shit! Sorry, my bad. Moplo Storo made it through.
This was the big upset one.
Yeah, no, we're going to get to that in a second. I'm just running through all the results real quick. But pool 3, Stratus and Excel beat out Undecided and Epsilon Esports. And then in pool 4, we had Method and Reason Gaming beating out WLF and Girls Like You, right? Let's start with that Nordavind upset then, because this is the biggest upset for this team ever. Like, I know they're on a bit of a downward trend. I know they're struggling on a couple of aspects, but the loss to MCon and especially Moplo Storo, that's absolutely disappointing for this squad.
Yeah, so again, like you said, downwards trend. I think they've just started to find inconsistency in online cups because, like we said last week with Gfinity, they're actually looking okay. But here, yeah, losing out at this stage to MCon, always a weird one because they just can be really strong on some days. But yeah, Nordavind they had the easiest group, I reckon, here. And sticking on the same group, Rescue Wales forfeit in the day. I shouldn't have to go for it again, but have subs. It's the whole point of the Renegade Cup is that you fill a roster with 5 players so that you have enough players to play every single time. And it's all about strengthening the bubble scene by then bringing in these subs to play for you.
Exactly,
and
man. Like,
it's squandering the chance, really. If teams, I'm going to literally lay it all out the line here. If teams keep forfeiting and causing problems, because Psyonix, the lads there, have been looking at this. We don't like this from teams forfeiting because it looks unprofessional because this is their name getting put on it as well as sponsors. I'm worried if like it comes around to January and you've got loads of teams signing up with a chance and then suddenly they're on the day, they get a bad group and they don't want to play for whatever reason or they can't field it. Sonics might pull the plug on Renegade Cup, just do the one season and go, no, it didn't work. And that scares me because the Renegade Cup is something that needs to continue to strengthen the community.
Yeah, like there's no excuse anymore at this point. You know, I mean, in the first round, we were like, okay, maybe this is a bit much. We can understand for the open qualifiers, and then just fucking, you know, like, sure. But now we're in round 2. We're into the top 16. This is just stupid now. This is kind of dumb. Like, there's no excuses anymore. And the worst part about it is that Rescue Wales are a hype fucking team. You know, being part of Hashtag
so
United,
much potential.
Yeah, being part of Hashtag United, just destroying everybody in the Elite Series. I don't think they've lost yet. Like, they're doing insane work right now in World Rocket League. Like, they could be potentially
the Renegade Cup
8.
should be theirs. Like, in the sense of.
Yeah,
this is a team which the Renegade Cup was designed for. It's not designed for the RLRS teams. No matter how much you might think, the RLRS teams are just your ceiling. That's it. We're looking for your, your MCon coming through from this week. We're looking for your Stratus. We're looking for the Rescue Wales. These are the teams that it's actually designed for and to strengthen them so that when it comes to next RLRS season, you're not going to have, 8 teams like we did last season fighting for those 4 spots. You're going to have 16 teams. It's Psyonix actually looking to the future, and this is why I'm thinking 2019 is probably not going to happen. If any format change does come, it's not coming to RLCS in the EU and NA. It's actually coming to RLRS, where they're going to start expanding it so the top 8 might be solid spots, and then the next 8 or whatever become, open spots for the next season or something like ridiculous like that, because they like having top 8 for RLCS. And it's them trying to develop. This is all them sort of setting the tone for the future. And if players start forfeiting out these on the regular, it's going to lose confidence for Psyonix to try and invest in the bubble teams like this. And this is why I'm very frustrated by teams dropping out in this latter stage when Rescue Wales had a very good chance of making it through to the final week.
Exactly, and the thing, and I echo the points I made last week about the forfeits from stage 1. Like, Excel died for this not to happen again. It should not be happening again. Like, for fuck's sake, guys, sort yourselves out a sub, even if it is just for one match. For one match, even if you need to, all right, okay, we can't get our main third in at the moment. He'll be here in an hour, so just we'll play this one series. We'll come back in the upper bracket or the lower, or in the winners match or the elimination match. It's fine. We can get through this. It's Gucci. Like, there's just no excuse anymore. And again, I love the Rescue Wales. I love them. I love Rafi. He's a fantastic mate. Absolutely chill hanging out with him and Gfinity and the RLCS land. I rate him as a player. I rate this team as a whole. This should not be happening. There is no excuse None whatsoever. I don't give a fuck. There is just none, right?
We're just disappointed parents. That is the best.
Exactly. We're not angry. We're just disappointed. We are just very, very disappointed. Again, because they were the most hyped team coming into this. I think they probably could have won the Thunderdome if they were persistent enough and if they didn't forfeit in this kind of way. So disappointments all around. Sorry, boys, but I have to call you on that one. That's just my job.
Yeah, and well, I don't think they would have won it, but it's always that case of, again, the reason why this is, you learn more in defeat. They're going up against, Secret, their Method. I reckon one of those two is going to be taking it this week. But by going up against them, Excel, Reason, these are good teams to go up against. And like I said, if you lose,
these are teams they might face in the Gfinity Elite Series, that's hella great practice. It's like, fuck yeah, awesome. If we can go toe to toe against them right now, then when we have the main roster and we're playing on LAN where we strive, it's an amazing storyline to build, as from a casting perspective, as from a viewer's perspective, and as well as that from your own perspective as well. Because not only are you doing well, you're learning about that team, so you can bring that to the LAN. It's basic. This is basic, Bacon. It's basic. But no one gets it. I don't know why.
I always say it, and you can always throw the lash back at me, but I always use the very generic term of players are dumb. I'm not being mean about that at all, but it's just like you miss little opportunities. Everyone does it. It's always going to happen, but it's just like you overlook the simple little things, and it's just what it is, Like me being there, like it's quite easy for me to go. And Tylacto put a very good point, and I understand it, saying nobody wants to sub where where you can't play. You don't want to be a sub for a team when you can go onto a different team and be, on the main bench. That, and I'm just there going, yeah, but you want to make the strongest team possible, be part of something great instead of something that's a bit meh. So this is why I'll back Z9 joining that Method roster and being a sub, even though he is now looking to start building up a new team for next RORS season. He's there working alongside the Method guys as their sub, and I think he's got the right idea and play there, where he's getting involved. He's playing in don't get me wrong, the weaker stages of these tournaments, in the qualifiers and round one, but that's how you should have the mindset. Your main team is Method, for example, here, and then you've got this second one, which if you can build something up, you'll move on to that, but that's your backup. You're working alongside these guys for a greater goal, something actually you can envision down the road, and you can see Method being in RLCS next season. They're growing at such a good rate.
Yeah, so subs. Yeah, again, as you're saying, probably not the worst thing in the world. I do think the whole 3 players you just stick together rule is a bit stupid, but again, I don't see that as an excuse not to put a sub on the team. And just that's just my opinion. You can change subs. Like you can remake a new roster if you want to, so long as you have those 4 players in. Silence clarified this. If you have a 4-man team and then one drops to a 3-man team, then the points stay with the 3-man. If you have a 3-man team drops to the 2-man team, they're forfeit. So to me, that's not an excuse.
The core has to stay the same. That is basically it, and it makes sense.
Right, well, let's move on to...
here, actually, just to use the terms. XL last month played with the 3 players. This month, they had McLovin, their sub to the roster. They don't lose any points for that. It's just them strengthening themselves. And actually, without McLovin playing in the earlier stages of this month, XL wouldn't have been able to play in this month's Thunderdome. It's just common sense to put a player on.
Yeah. And there you go. XL, as a result, actually made it out of Pool 3. Which is what we're going to talk about next, because this pool was an absolute clusterfuck. Not even going to deny it. Like there are so many storylines coming out of this one. It's just like, oh my god. Let's begin with Epsilon. I railed on them hard a couple weeks ago at the Gfinity Elite Series. I was talking they were way too inconsistent. I thought that if they came up against Nordavin that week on LAN, that they'd be able to do some good work, because the Nordavin side has just quite got it together and they have a bit of a higher ceiling. But lately, they have not been hitting that high ceiling at all. And it kind of proves the point. Against Stratus, they went 3-2 down. And against XL, they went 3-2 down in the lower bracket. So let's talk about Epsilon for a little bit. Like, fuck. Like, what is left?
Like we did last week, pretty much.
Like we did last week. Like, I had a little bit of optimism last week. I was like, there needs to be some improvements. But now this week, it's just like, this is a very, very terrible look for these guys.
It really is. And just on that note, us being a bit worried about them. Last week, can't remember what bloody day it was. I think like Tuesday or Wednesday. It was Tuesday. Epsilon played in the Gfinity online stuff and came runners up. They beat Team Secret in the first qualifier for the Ballistics Brawl. You know, this is a team that can get so far. They can be so good. We talked about them winning the Randstad Games finals over in France at the Paris Games Week and all of that. And then they just have days where they poop it. They just basically shit the bed and don't do anything. And it's that inconsistency, which is a problem they've got to sort out. And I did put it down, didn't I, last week, J2? Bilbo is their new star player. He is the one which everything is counting on. Because the other two, Sebdam and Cheerio, are anchor. Like, I call them anchor players, and not really, but they're stable. They're not going to win you a game. They're not going to lose you one. Bilbo has to be that one factor in the team, and that is way too much pressure from him now, especially since he's the rookie to this level.
Yeah, I didn't want to I don't know if you checked out the VOD between Epsilon and Stratus, whether you actually were able to see whether Bilbo was able to do anything. And we don't have the stats on hand for it. We don't have the demo, so I can't really just read the numbers off of it. I didn't actually get the chance to watch this series because I was busy that day. But do you think Bilbo can mount the pressure more than anything else? Obviously, he's been the talking point. He's been the man of the moment. And so far, it looks like he hasn't really kind of showed up.
Again, this is just rookie nerves. It's the same as if we had put the whole of the season onto Scrub Killer, you know, for Vitality and RLCS. Actually, Scrub Killer, which to be fair,
against that point, you know, like he kind of was the main thing that Vitality had going for them for the entire season. You know, like not a very fair comparison. I mean, I understand the point, but you know,
my point here is that Bilbo is not the problem in this team. Sebadam and Cheerio, one of them two needs to step it up, or they've got to arrange a new third. Yeah, and I like Sebadam, so I'm going to be very biased towards him in this roster. Nothing against Cheerio, but I think they need another player, another flick player is what I call it, in the sense of they need someone that can step it up and really pull it out of the bag, because Bilbo has got so much potential that I wouldn't see anyone wanting, like, I wouldn't want him to be dropped from this roster. And again, this is more probably me being biased than anything.
Perhaps it is, because to me, like, I don't know. I think, again, like I said last week, I think Bilbo's still got a lot to prove. And I don't really want to split up that duo. Sebadam and Cheerio have been together for fucking yonks, you know. Like, I don't know if that's a good idea. It's the same thing as why I don't think...
yonks, but they've been working together well for a long time.
Yeah, like, you know, like it's the same reason why I was very, very against the complexity move, because you've just destroyed the entire dynamic by removing one of the key components of that team. And I fear that's what's going to happen with Epsilon, because they can still hit some pretty high highs. You know, as you said, Randstad Games victory. They went 3-0 against Nordiv in that Gfinity Winter Series where they came second place. You know, they do have some high points, but the problem is that when it comes to the very important things, the inconsistency really hits home.
Well, just on that note, now, I'm going to be probably a little too harsh here. Sebadam Cheerio, I don't see him from now on ever making RLCS again. I don't think they've got it in them to be able to get to that level, because other players, of course, are at that level. Bilbo's the only one in this roster which I think has the potential to be able to make it. Don't get me wrong, it is still super hard and he's going to have to grind away from it. But that's just where I feel at. Sebadam's such a consistent player, but he's a consistent RLRS player. Bilbo has that chance, I reckon, next season. He could really show off. And I'm saying this is him in a year's time, maybe being able to get there. And that's a maybe. But the other two, I just don't see it from.
Oh,
I'm being very harsh there.
Wow,
I know,
all right.
That's an opinion.
Usually I'm the pessimistic one, but this time you're going in hard. Like, holy shit. Again, I don't know how much of a good idea splitting those two up would be. But at this point, I do think something needs to change for this roster in order to have any sort of success, because this is currently unacceptable. They're going to go out in the top 16 of the Thunderdome. And that's going to be the end of Epsilon's run here for this month's RLCS Cup. But still, we've got more to talk about in this group. We've still got the image up on screen because that wasn't the only upset we saw as well. XL went 3-1 down against Undecided. And this actually guaranteed that at least one of these two teams would have ended up falling. So let's talk about this. Is this a result that maybe should have come through for XL? Because at first, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you know what? There's probably no way that XL should have been able to there's no way that XL should have been able to lose this match. But that being said, they're still on a bit of a downward trajectory. You know, in the Elite Series, they weren't looking, and you know, in this matchup, you know, they actually got some pretty decent talents in that mix to be on the side. You know, Flakes, Ocelon, and Sweaty Mix. I can actually see an upset being very, very plausible, all things considered.
Yeah, there's. I'm just trying to think of how to word it really right now. So underside. Again, another team potential. There's another bubble team. I'm not going to lie. I probably overlooked them a lot. Sweaty Mix, Ocelon, and Flakes.
Oh, I did.
Players. Yeah, it's just a case of they've been around for so long. And I know just for the example of Flakes, he seems to just go for these periods where he just won't play and stuff. Ocelon and Sweaty Mix, I feel the biggest problem for these three is actually that they don't stick together. They're players that have been jumping around in different teams, and I think that needs to stop. Another big point of the Renegade Cup was that teams make a roster and they stay as that roster to gain chemistry and that, which is Sonic sort of like in, I agree with it, don't get me wrong, but in an odd way, forcing stability in teams. And it's a clever way that they did it, but they didn't communicate it well enough because, of course, these lads played in last month, but then they didn't stick as their teams. They lost those. Yep, they lost those points, and it was all down to Sonics not communicating that. Jail backed me up, and I did tell the guys, you've got to tweet this out as its own thing, and you've got to like really communicate this to the players. Because once again, I'll say it, players are dumb, and they overlook this. I don't blame.
Is that going to become our next quote? Just quote Bacon.
No, it's me going. Yeah, it's me going to the extreme. I don't blame players for not looking through every single one of the bloody rules because there was too many of them. Well, I say too many, but they needed to just basically have a short run of like what is most important. Like you don't need to read that every single the games can have whatever format they want, yada yada yada. But you do need to know you have to stick as this roster. Players signed up for the Grand Prix not knowing that. And even for us as casters, can you remember during the Grand Prix, we were a little bit unsure, like, okay, so how does this work? Is it just like, two of the three have to stick? What's going on here? And it was, if it's unclear for casters when they're trying to communicate this to their audience,
yeah.
Nope. And again, this me saying players are dumb doesn't actually mean that. It's just me being very general and being, it's like a slap, essentially, you know. There's not a massive amount of meaning behind it, and it can be taken and used so many different ways. But players are dumb, and they need to read through the rules because they should know by now with Sonics, it's not just straightforward and simple. There's little things which they have not highlighted for you.
And I do hope that they do stay together, because
this
they
is
actually
a good
did
roster.
Yeah, there's a good roster, all things considered. They just had a couple of problems at the end of it. They failed to make against Stratus, who we haven't really talked about much. Obviously, they took that upset against Epsilon, but making their way into top 8, this is not a roster you should see in top 8 of Renegade of a Renegade Monthly. Like, they're great, they're good players. But
Maybe in
if
January.
You see me, maybe in January, perhaps. But the problem is when you take a look at in the context of this group, like Strat should not, like Undecided probably shouldn't have made it out either. That should have been Epsilon XL every day of the week. But the fact that they did, like, I'm not sure if this is a flash in the pan or whether they're genuinely going to go do something really good.
So I reckon more so for Stratus, which is a bit harsh, I reckon that was more of a flash in the pan. That's like a one-off. These lads were playing nuts on Thursday. Not going to take anything away from them, but it is just that difference in skill level where they haven't learned that consistency. The same thing I'm going to bag on a little bit about Epsilon, where they're inconsistent because just this time they're inconsistent because they've got to build up more together. Good stuff for Strats. Hopefully next month they can carry it through. And if they prove me wrong and then come out very, very top this week's final, I will eat my words and be there like fucking A Stratus, but they're a team which I do expect to drop out in the first round. And I mean, if you're a betting man looking at who they're going against, it's understandable. Even though they will get, I don't know because the bracket hasn't been announced, but it's either going to be.
Actually, it has been announced. It has been announced. They're up against Reason Gaming.
Oh, they're fucked. Reason can just pull things out at the moment, and they're doing. Like, that was a naff day for Reason. But that's more because they had Method in that roster. Method coming out on top. WLF actually looked really good in that day. I'm not going to lie. But it is just a case of they've actually pulled this the the shitty end of the stick, essentially, because French Fries or Moplo Story would have been such a much more favorable matchup. I'd probably say Moplo Story is the weakest team in all of those eight, but I feel sorry for Stratus here. That's harsh.
Fucking hell, dude. Sorry, you completely buckled me. I'm sorry. It's just straight up, they're fucks. They're fucks. Goodbye, Stratus. Oh my god. But I mean, again, it's another case about them going up against Reason, who in theory should be a team that they should lose to. But I'll be honest, like, I still have questions about them. Obviously, like, they were thrown together super last second, based off of two former players of the Copenhagen Flames, and they haven't had a great time doing a whole lot in the Gfinity Elite Series. There's still a lot of questions about this roster. If Stratus are on an upset streak, I still think that could be another victory in their favor, though.
Yeah, I think Ty Lacto's put best in chat, 15 and 20% chance of them upsetting, and I understand that. Reasons on a team that's on the up right now because they only formed for Gfinity. Chacaron was on Copenhagen Flames, Pugsay was the sub for that team, and Calyx got brought on over from the Clappers, so they formed for Gfinity. So they're only learning together. So Reason Gaming, I reckon, if they stick together and keep working at it, they could be an RLRS team next season, which is good. They're all players of that caliber. Stratus on the opposite end, they're just not there yet. This is them, again, enough reason. Renegade Cup is perfect for them. Them getting to this point is good. Tylacto saying Reason will disband off the G.
I have a reason to agree. I have a reason to agree, to be honest. Like, again, it's all about the nature of this team. Like, Reason Gaming, they're probably in this for they're probably in this for this one fucking season because Unilad pulled out. Like, the only reason why they're there is because Gfinity owned them and they needed a 10th spot. Like, their chances are they're probably going to find someone else later on to replace them.
We need to do a prediction for that as well at some point.
What? Who's going to be the next team to buy in?
The next team, because I will say Asu's coming in was a big surprise to me. Actually, I didn't expect a Spanish team like that to come in.
I don't know. There's a lot of speculation, and a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. Like, there's no real potential to read into like a team of Rocket League.
You look more at FIFA actually at this point. Yeah, that's the big one for GFin.
Yeah, like Rocket League is not the only thing that you factor into like when they pick a franchise to join the Elite Series. But again, as Tylacto says, there's probably no real future for Reason Gaming as a brand and as a team, which sucks again.
But on that note, Chacaron is a good player, but he requires a team to stick together for a long time to build them up.
And that's the problem. What fucking team has he been with that's stuck together for a long time? The Bricks? No. Epsilon?
Wait, they broke up, but that was not of a fault of his own. That was well, as
that's
you know,
the problem. If the team breaks up, that's the problem. That's the problem. If the team
got picked up by PSG, Chacaron's got the shitty end of the stick there.
That's the problem.
I don't blame them.
If unless you can find players that were involved in a project like that one, then I'm not convinced by Chacaron as a player individually. Like he can be a great cement, as you say, for a team. But as you say, they have to stick together for ages, and you've got to have a lot of faith. You've got to have players with a lot of faith in your team in order to make that happen.
So even for me, I'm not. So I would hope these guys stick together after GFin. If not, there's still that time because GFin finishes. Jesus, when is it? December 9th, I want to say. December 8th and 9th, I think, is the last week of GFin, or it's like the 15th or 16th, something around that time. There's still time throughout January, February, and then you'd imagine RLRS starting in March or the back end of February at the very latest. But they've got Renegade Cup for that, so I imagine it's March. That's 2 months for him to get a new project going, and I think Chacaron should be able to start that up and have enough time, but he's got to do it straight away after GFin and put all that work, because like I said, he's a great player. He just needs to stick with a team for a long time. You saw when they came in under the bricks in RLRS, and it just was not the same as the previous bricks, of course, because there was just not that chemistry put together. There was not those strategies, those team plays learned, because it's a completely brand new team.
And again, all that sort of like political stuff surrounding the Reason Gaming brand and who owns it, and everything in regards to that. Like there's just nothing. There's no faith for me in the future, the long-term future of Reason Gaming. They probably could go far here, but again, for the Elite Series and everything else, I'm not sure about them. So they are. That is the Thunderdome round 2 wrapped up. Quick a look at the bracket. Obviously, you can see that on screen right now. The first quarterfinals are set to be decided and to be played out tomorrow at 7 o'clock. CEST or 6?
Yeah, 7 o'clock CEST.
7 o'clock CET, actually, not CEST. Where Secret are taking on Moplo Storo, Strat is taking on Reason Gaming, MCon taking on Excel, and Method are taking on French Fries. Now, I'm going to move swiftly on because we are out of time. We still want to cover the promotion tournament in regards to the RLCS. So we'll bring that up on screen right now. Your bracket played out as follows. Red Reserve and Savage making it forward, beating out the likes of Fnatic and Complexity to make it 4 teams out of 4 across both regions that made their way from the RLRS into the RLCS. So we're going to split this down team by team, go from the losers to the winners of this promotion tournament, and talk about the successes and failings of the EU relegation. So let's start with Complexity, Bacon. Let's start with Complexity.
Are you getting started with this, or is it me? Because I think
I'm getting started.
You're okay.
I'm getting very started with this one. Because there's something that pissed me off about the broadcast as a whole is the fact that the analysts tried to play it off as if it wasn't the roster move. Like it wasn't the roster move that completely crippled this team. It fucking was.
It was a bad decision.
Absolutely was. It was the worst decision in the RLCS history. I'd argue that it's probably the worst roster move in Rocket League history as a whole. Like this is an absolute disaster for Complexity, for the team, for the organization. You've gone from 3rd place at Worlds to relegated in a season that is unprecedented beyond anything I've ever seen in esports, bar 1 or 2 grassroots exceptions. But that's grassroots in World esports, in World Rocket League. This is the worst thing that could have possibly happened to this squad. And again, it's all down to that roster move. It has to be down to that roster move. It's nothing to do with the fact that Greasy Meister's a terrible player or Metanaris was that good. It's because you took such a key component out of a team that was so built around consistency and strength and chemistry that it just ruined the entire team dynamic. And they're feeling the burn right now. This Complexity that remains is feeling it terribly. And Metanaris is fucking bored in it because he remained at 3rd place in the world. Like just fuck.
Mets is a solid core player of a team, and actually on that Weedham girls side, him and Remco, it actually allowed Mets to go a little bit more aggressive, and Remco then followed, and they sort of shared the same role with Ignite just being the star player on the roster essentially, and that was better for them because it allowed Ignite to just have free. The other 2 will pick up wherever there is space. Beforehand, you had Devo that was not really being able to have that star player, but still trying to play those roles, and it was just disjointed. Here, Weedham girls look so super solid and so happy for their future. They're going to stay around in the top end for a while. They could be the next best in the EU, and it is looking like it could be that way inclined. Complexity, however, they basically tried a new idea, playing with Greasy, changing it up, but the problem was that then they actually got rid of the wrong player on the roster. Magnus, who previously was the best player on the whole Complexity, you'd imagine, don't get rid of your best player. But he was only so good because Metanaris was always the wingman to him. Without that wingman, which Greasy is not, Magnus had probably the worst season I've seen from him this season. And
yeah,
in a lot of ways,
he
I don't want to say
it's edge
Magnus's
of a fucking
fault.
cliff.
Yeah, they needed to get a wingman player in instead of Greasy. And it's all disjointed. There's got to be a roster swap. I've already put in some speculation about that a little bit later on down the line. But there is going to be a roster swap, I'd imagine, before the next season of RLCS.
Absolutely, there will have to be something done. I have put in a little bit about Complexity, the organization, because we will remember that famous clip when Complexity changed their management. They were picked up by, I can't remember what the football team was, but some sort of football team in America. And Jason Lake was there with all of his staff members, and he was discussing picking up a Rocket League team. He was like, we're going to pick up the 2nd best Rocket League team in the world. Back then, they were the 2nd best Rocket League team in the world. Now, however, they're very much not. The attitude, I'm not sure what the attitude is like inside that camp right now for the complexity management. But it must be very, very dejecting to know, like, this is the state of our Rocket League team, going from the second best in the world to absolute shite. So is there potential possibly for this team to get dropped and for Complexity to pick someone else up? I mean, they've already got the connection to Metzenaris. We them goals. We know that they've been desperate for an organization. If Complexity are here for the long haul, then what's the possibility of that being a thing?
So for me, like I said, I reckon RLRS will probably get a little bit more of a bump in highlight next season. Complexity will be locked in for at least another 6 months in contract. So unless they want to break those contracts and then probably pay the players quite a large sum, they'll stick with them, with the whole goal of them just basically going, right, you lads have to make RLCS next season. I could not imagine Complexity giving the players a contract and saying, no, in the contract, if you drop out of RLCS, your contract is void. That is just not something these players should be signing. You cannot be that cocky about your own skill, and you would have it set up so that you would get paid essentially so that they can then go on and do a season without a team and all of this and then make it back. Like I said, I reckon this is going to be one of the players. Don't see a lot getting dropped, either Magnus or Greasy, depending on what angle they want to go with. Like I said, they could get back to that old form if they drop Greasy and bring in a new wingman player, or they drop Magnus and try and get a star player that is, or a core player. I don't know how they want to really divvy it up, but a new player that has a different style. It's an awkward one to say right now, but I do not think that Complexity is going to drop this roster. They'll be locked in for another season.
Not initially, but again, I'm looking more towards the future. Depending on how the landscape looks after the next season, I could very easily see.
If they're in RLRS at the end of next season, they'll get dropped.
Yeah, and Fruity brings up a point about a performance clause, which is something that is a very, very common industry practice in esports as a whole. Like, I know that my mate Smooya from Counter-Strike, he got burned by that pretty hard when he signed a contract with Epsilon and got benched for like 6 months due to performance at their own discretion, basically was what the clause said in the contract. Depending on whether Complexity have signed a contract like that, that's the main talking point right there, is that do they have that contract clause? Do they have that get out of jail free card?
Any players that are listening, make sure to check that part of your contract.
Yeah.
Like, have it set in stone. Like, I know a lot of the teams that are like Red Reserve, for example, looking at, you're going to get paid X amount in RLRS, you go up to RLCS, you'll get paid this amount, and it's set in that. There's no if you come at the bottom of RLCS, you only get this amount. No, get it set in stone for either, because you could get burnt on that just because the org goes, oh, you didn't hit the targets we set for you, but you didn't give us a target. Yeah, but it wasn't what we wanted. You can't
argue against it.
When it's an opinion, it's like it's a very vague thing on contract. It'll go in their favor. They can win it.
Exactly. That's why this podcast is a disaster. Right. Well,
everything I'm saying
speculation.
It's true.
Everything. Well, let's move on from that. Obviously, speculation for Complexity. Very, very dark times for the roster. And also dark times for another roster, Fnatic, who, of course, had been in the C2, been in RLCS for 2 seasons, being in the relegation zone. They finally dropped out. This is another team that made a pretty key roster move prior to the season. So let's talk about that. Mummy Stowe was pretty considered to be hyped for this team, but again, performance did drop off as the season went on overall. Stats wise, he was constantly bottoming out the scoreboard, especially during the promo playoffs where he was on average at least low or middle. And yeah, I don't know what to make of Fnatic at the moment, because again, they have been on a downward spiral. There's also been pretty rife in the G50 Elite series. There's a lot of questions again about this team. And again, from an organization like Fnatic, or a lot like Complexity, they're used to winning. They're used to having such a big brand, a big name, a big sort of presence in a scene like this. This is not the performance that this org wants from their team.
So again, on that same note, and Freeze put a good one in chat there, if Fnatic don't win GFIN, they'll probably disband. Now, this can come down to, again, their contracts, of whether Fnatic had them set in for a certain number of, I'd imagine it would have been Gfinity seasons. Generally, you see 2 seasons. which this would be, I do believe, at the end. So they could, after this G thing, get dropped by Fnatic, which is, for me, very scary because Fnatic as an org is great for Rocket League because it's such a big one. But they could have signed for a little bit longer. Who knows? It comes down to that. But definitely next season, I expect there to be a roster change. Mummy Snow coming into this team, he was dropped by Mouse and then got picked up, which at the time I thought, why would you drop Mummy Snow from Mouse? He was a good player. Getting picked up, I was like, oh, that should only make things somewhat the same for Fnatic because relatively at the time, skill-wise, I thought Siki and Mummy Snow were roughly about the same area, so it wasn't an upgrade or downgrade. But because of the skill of everyone else this season, the RLRS team's really stepping it up. They're not at that level. Fnatic are a top half RLRS team at the moment, I think, in my books anyway. And like you said, Fnatic aren't an org that want that. They want to be winning. They want to be in the top half of RLCS. So it's a bit awkward for these lads.
Yeah, and it does kind of suck because, you know, you put sort of in the notes, there's sort of like a borderline team. So is it literally just the eternal doom of forever being stuck in the promotion playoffs or the top half of the RLRS or the bottom half of the RLCS? Like, you know, more cause of argument to be, let's expand the teams in the RLCS, boys, you know. Come on, boys, when's it going to happen? You know, stuff like that. But it's another conversation for another.
You were talking about complexity, maybe picking up Weedham Girls. Fnatic is an org, I see that a lot more in. Considering the lads played on Method previously, which was a GFIN team as well, I could see if any team at the moment that's currently going to change teams in Rocket League is going to be Fnatic picking up Weedham Girls because the lads would go play at LAN. I know Remco, when he was doing MV, didn't really like going to GFIN, and he just needs to grow up on that regard because he can be quite egotistical. It's just what it is. But iGnite and Metza would definitely be on board for going to GFIN. And for me, that's good for them. That's a big pull for Fnatic, I think.
I think possibly, yeah, as well. So, do you know what? That's actually a really good point. I can't believe I didn't consider that actually prior to the show. That's actually just shit. The things are not looking great for Fnatic or Complexity. Like, who's going to get there first, I think, is the real question at the moment. Like, there's probably could be some serious organizational shifts and landscape shifts coming in on the Rocket League scene. So make sure you keep your eyes out on that, on the Reddits, on the Twitters, on everything else. And of course, we'll be here to cover it on AfterShock as it comes through. So let's talk about the winners of this one because RLRS have made it. Savage and Red Reserve are promoted. Let's start with Savage really quickly. Because the key thing to note about the promotion playoffs is the fact that both of the RLRS teams won their opening matches. Again, it's a very similar thing to what I was saying about Pool 3 from the Thunderdome. Like, that we were guaranteeing at least one RLRS team forward. And in this case, Savage, they had a bit of a close game against Complexity, which is where I thought things kind of dropped off a little bit. You know, I kind of thought that they weren't the most confident team coming into this one. I definitely thought they were probably going to make it through by the skin of their teeth. And mainly because of that sort of like conversation we've had in the past about Savage being much more offensively focused. And you could see kind of like a lot of the time during that series against Complexity were using that against them by quite the amount, you know?
Yeah, I'm thinking in my head here, the problem for this is I think the RLCS teams are a bit naive. So let's take Fnatic. I think they near enough planned strategies to go against Red Reserve and Complexity. Complexity thought about, we can take down Savage and we know how to play against Fnatic. And I feel that was the big letdown for them, is that they didn't focus hard enough. And these lads, Savage and Red Reserve, would have thought it through entirely. Roken, the manager, probably would have gone through replays and come up, like, talk to the lads about that. I know he's definitely in the Discord with them and sort of like, you know, trying to formulate, oh, this is what you need to do. Because this is definitely one thing in Rocket League that needs to be picked up even more, it would seem. It's just being able to have a third-party viewer look in and just go, oh, this is where they're beating you in this area. And just basically having an unbiased opinion to it. Because if you're a player, you can miss little bits, you know, whereas if you're a spectator, you can look over everything on the stream and then be able to go, oh, they're doing this in the back ends, which you might have missed. But for me, it just seems like they were not prepared for this. Red Reserve have been grinding it out, and are so impressive. Savage on the opposite end. These lads are all RLCS players. I've even said, Alpha is the best player on that team. And on that note, I think he might get picked up by a different org. Because he's so impressive.
Like, holy shit, if there's one player on Savage that impressed me this season, it was Alpha. And partly it's because no one really knew what to expect from him coming in. He was a completely new element, and we were just like, well, we've got Bluey, we've got Evo, they've got, we've got some talent here. But who's this Alpha kid? Like, who the fuck? Like, what's this guy going to do? And then suddenly, boosh, he was probably, I argue, probably the best player on that team throughout the course of the season. Like, there's a very good argument to be made about that. Like, he is fucking insane. And again, as you say, probably might be a bit of a hot topic for teams to pick up. Like, there's a lot of speculation about roster.
Well, we talked about complexity. I'm just going to say, if Savage struggle to find an org to pick them up, like, would it be such a bad idea to maybe take that step down to an RLRS team for that one season, replace either Magnus or Greasy, with the plan that he's going to then get up into RLCS next season, but he's going to be on solid money where complexity will stick with him? Like, that could be an idea. I'm just thinking, like, at the moment, that's thinking 2 steps ahead, but it's a risk,
It depends really how it's going to play out for Savage as well.
Get picked up by those guys, but I don't see any massive reason for Savage to change up their lineup.
That's the thing, though. It's like, what if the better offer does come through? And again, like we've talked about, Savage are not perfect as a team play as a whole. I do think they need a defensive element because they don't have one at the moment. They have 3 pure strikers at the moment on that squad, and there were points during that complexity series where they were exploited in that regard. I highlight the game 3 in particular as a perfect example of not only for both complexity's weaknesses and Savage's weakness, because it was close, but it was just like some of the most scrappy Rocket League I've seen at the world tier. So many double commits on the offensive line. This is the players clash with each other and push the ball out of position in situations where really Savage should have had the game wholly under control. They didn't quite do it. And again, if it's just that one player that holds a bit more straight back, plays the midfield, plays towards the back line defense, gets ready for the rotations, then I think Savage would become a much better team off the back of that,
Actually, on that note, I'm trying to think, like, there on that note, who would pick up? Like, how is RLCS going to change next season? Because changing your roster, clearly, from what we saw last season, hurt teams, mainly. But here, if I'm looking at it, I don't think Mouse Sports are going to be changing their roster because they'll be building together. Like, and that's pretty much because I wouldn't know who they would change. But knowing Vitality and Pashi, the captain, of course, I could see Fairy Peak, who could not get a season together. Alpha could replace Fairy Peak because I think he could.
Like shit, I think next week we're gonna have to do a special on potential roster moves and who's gonna have to, because there are so many potential things we could discuss.
That's the only team I can see picking up in RLCS, picking Alpha up. Otherwise, that squad stays together. That's my thing.
Well, Savage right now seem like they need Savage right now seem like they are certainly in a very good position, regardless of the problems that we sort of discussed. They have made it through to the RLCS. As of my boys in Red Reserve, yeah, fam, I'm so fucking happy with this one. So happy with this one. They look so good throughout the course of their playoff bracket. Like, oh my God, they smashed Fnatic, they smashed Savage. It was beautiful, Bacon. It was so fucking
Red Reserve are a top 4 team EU at the moment. Like, they were just stuck in RLRS because of how the format is. That's not a problem. They've just shown their skill and they've made it through. The grind pays off, and these lads have been grinding for over a year. I think it was a year, like last week or something like that, and that proves the dedication they've had together. Again, we always say it, we did not know why they would jump last second from Andom over to Speed, but Ronaki,
it was clearly a very good move.
It was the best fucking move ever. Like, you had at the same, like, think of this at the same time. Complexity changed the roster.
Had the worst fucking move ever, you know?
Red Reserve, boom. Like, it just shows risks pay off, but risk also, like, can hurt you. Here, Red Reserve, like I said, next season could make land. And looking at the current teams, unless there is a big change up or anything, I think they're a top 4 team and they will make land next season. Like I said, the change there being something happens to Vitality and they start doing nuts, or PSG finally works. I don't know. But for me, Red Reserve has got a big, bright future.
They have got a really bright future. I mean, the top 4 LAN bit will have to see how that plays out. Honestly, do you know what? Like with how hype I am right now, that's a pretty fucking, you know, intense thing to say. So I'm trying to hold myself back a little bit without just going full frontal like Red Reserve are the best fucking thing. But I will say that if there's a comparison point to make, I did think that during this promotion playoffs, they were probably like, they learned the dignitas of the RLRS. And that really does excite me because they were looking so solid. You know, they lost 2 games in the entire bracket. They absolutely smashed the likes of Savage. You know, like, again, I'm really, really hyped to see what they can do in the next season. And maybe it's possible, you know, like we saw some teams that we didn't expect to go through the LAN this season. Maybe Red Reserve could do it. I just really hope that they don't take the next off season lightly and they really put some work in onto improving themselves. You know, obviously they've been going ham on all the Gfinity's tournaments and they won the last Renegade monthly. So I'm hoping it keeps up from them. I really am. Like,
it's RLCS pressure, which they've got to learn to deal with, which is, again, the reason why I think they're doing every single tournament they can at the moment. On that note, I'm looking if they've signed up for GFIN tonight, because they didn't sign up last night, which really upset me because they could have made it 5, you know, GFINs in a row, just kept extending that. I would have loved that so much. Them just keep on extending, making this unachievable goal of how many GFINs in a row you can win. But they haven't signed up yet for tonight, which I don't know, that makes me a little bit sad.
Speed, get on that right now. Sign up for GFIN. We're casting it in about an hour.
Shit, yeah, it's now it's an hour and a half.
It's an hour and a half. We'll be on the Rewind channel doing that shit. Me and Bacon. Our night's not over, not by a long shot.
It's coming up to 7 now. It's only going to be like. Yeah, it's only going to be 45 minutes. Crap, Jake, we got to wrap this up.
We got to wrap this up. Then
half an hour.
Then let's wrap it up right here and conclude by saying thank you very much for watching the RLAfterShock podcast. This one's been a blast, actually. A lot of people coming out in chat, so I want to give a shout out to all the players who have been interacting. I know we haven't been like the most talkative in this episode, but so you know, just thanks for sharing your thoughts and sharing your feedback. We love it when we see that sort of shit in our Twitch chat. So you know, big thumbs up, big thank you every single day.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's it. We just love the interaction here. So I'd like to start you lads, Nose Dude and Fruity, Speed coming through and just sort of chatting with us, giving your opinions, and that's more it. I love you guys being in chat purely because you'll say stuff. We're reading it, of course, and that, and then just pick up and go, oh, that's really cool, and can just say that. Because you got to remember, you've got the guys that are listening to the podcast as well that are just listening in, and then they get your chirps, your little opinions and that, which is just pretty sweet. I think is more of a casual or an enthusiast to be able to hear that.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, just, you know, again, massive thanks to the boys over in the Twitch chat, and massive thanks to everybody who's listening and watching through the Twitch chat, through the Twitch live stream, or watching through the YouTube VODs and listening to the audio podcast, which again is now available on iTunes. So if you want to subscribe to that, make sure you get on and search for RLAfterShock, all one word, capitals R and L and A and S, and you can find us right there on iTunes, as well as Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many other platforms, including Pocket Casts, Player FM, and the fuck is it called? I don't even remember. But anyway, again, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you follow the Twitter at RLAfterShock and get involved via the Discord. Sorry, we've been at this for 2 hours. We shouldn't be fucking. Right, we're gonna get the fuck out of here. Right, thank you very much for listening. Again, if you're still live, make sure you tune in to twitch.tv/rewindrl to watch the Gfinity Winter Series in a couple of moments' time. But until then, next week we'll be back with even more of the Aftershock. Till then, take care and see you soon.